Have you ever poured your entire soul into building a life, only to have the person you trust most try to burn it all down for a cheap thrill? I have. My husband didn't just break my heart. He tried to steal my dream. He forgot one thing: I built that dream from nothing. And I know exactly how to turn it into his worst nightmare. This story is a wild ride of betrayal and revenge. If you believe in standing up for yourself, hit that like button and subscribe. Because you won't want to miss how this ends. Chắc chắn rồi. Tôi hiểu bạn muốn một phiên bản có chiều sâu và chi tiết hơn. Dưới đây là chương 1 được triển khai lại. Mở rộng đáng kể về nội tâm nhân vật, chi tiết bối cảnh và nhịp độ câu chuyện. Tuân thủ tất cả các yêu cầu ban đầu của bạn. The final brushstroke was a whisper of white, a tiny, perfect star painted onto a galaxy of deep, shimmering blue acrylic. I held my client's hand for a moment longer under the bright LED lamp, admiring the miniature universe I'd just created on her thumbnail. Her name was Mrs. Gable, a retiree who came in every 3 weeks like clockwork. She said my studio was the only quiet place she could find in all of Philadelphia. I understood. It was my sanctuary. 2. The air was thick with the sharp, clean scent of monomer, the smell of creation, of independence. It was a smell that reminded me I had built this. All of it. From nothing. Oh, Rachel. It's just divine. Mrs. Gable sighed, turning her hand over to see the art from every angle. You have such a gift. I smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through my chest. I'm glad you love it. It was fun to do. As she gathered her things, I thought about the word gift. It wasn't a gift. It was 1,000 late nights hunched over a practice hand, my fingers cramping and my back aching. It was every dollar saved from 16-hour shifts at Applebee's, my feet throbbing and my apron smelling of grease and stale beer. It was the grit and the grind that had turned an empty, dust-filled storefront into this clean docking archy. Bright space. My eyes drifted to the small, framed photo on my station. It was me and Judson, taken a little over a year ago. On the day I signed the lease, his arm was slung around my shoulder, his smile so wide and proud it nearly split his face. I could still remember the echo of our voices in the cavernous, empty room, the smell of old drywall and new possibilities. He'd shown up with a bucket of paint, calm aqua, and 2 rollers. He'd spent the entire weekend helping me, his laughter bouncing off the bare walls as he'd playfully dabbed a spot of the serene blue paint on my nose. We're a team, babe, he'd said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of sweat and latex paint. He'd held my face in his hands, his eyes serious for a moment. Your success is my success. Always remember that. And I did. I held on to those words like a promise. They were the fuel for every invoice I sent, every new technique I learned, every new client who walked through my door. All of it was for us. For the future he'd helped me paint on these very walls. A notification pinged on my phone, pulling me from the memory. Mrs. Gable's Uber had arrived. After seeing her out, I locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and let out a long, giddy breath. The excitement I'd been suppressing all day finally bubbled to the surface. I practically skipped back to my station, grabbing my phone and hitting the video call button for my best friend, Chloe. Her face, framed by a perpetually messy bun, popped onto the screen. Hey, you're finally done. I was about to send a search party. Just finished. You have a minute. I have to show you something that's going to blow your mind. For you, always. Spill it. I propped the phone against a bottle of top coat and swiveled my laptop around. Okay. Prepare to be amazed. I'm sharing my screen. Now. I brought up a meticulously organized Google Doc. At the top, in a swirling, et les enfants, were the words Project Anniversary Bliss. Chloe gasped. It was audible even through the phone's tiny speaker. Rachel. You did not. Is that Miami? The one and only? I beamed, feeling like I could float. 5 years. Chloe. We're doing it right. 3 bedrooms. Wraparound balcony. Infinity pool. I booked it this morning. Holy, Rach. This must have cost a fortune. Are you sure you can swing this? It's not about the money, I said, scrolling through the document to show her the rest. It's about proving we made it. You know, after all the struggling, he deserves this. We deserve this. My cursor hovered over the details. I had screenshots of the flight confirmations first class. Asplurgy, I knew he'd love. Links to Cuban restaurants in Little Havana. A color-coded schedule that balanced relaxation with adventurous spa day. A sunset cruise. Optional jet skiing. I'd even managed to get a reservation for the final night at that exclusive rooftop bar he'd seen on some travel show. The one he was always talking about. All of it. Paid for in full. My money. My hard work. A gift of love. He's going to lose his damn mind, Chloe said. Her smile as bright as mine. You are an amazing wife. You know that. That warmth bloomed in my chest again. A feeling of pure, unadulterated pride. It carried me through the rest of the evening. As I cleaned my station, organized my polishes, and planned the perfect way to surprise him. I even stopped for groceries on the way home, picking up his favorite craft beer and a thick-cut steak. The feeling lasted until about 9 o'clock. When Judson's keys finally rattled in the lock, the steak was resting on the counter. The salad was wilting in its bowl. I had lit a few candles. The moment he walked in, the joyful bubble I'd been living in all day didn't just pop, it evaporated. The first thing I noticed was the scent. It wasn't his usual woodsy, comforting cologne. It was something floral and sharp. A woman's perfume. It was expensive. Assertive. And it was all over his shirt. Hey. You, he said, his voice flat with exhaustion. He leaned down for a kiss. But it was just a brief press of his lips to my forehead. His hug was a quick, perfunctory squeeze. There was no warmth in it. It felt like an obligation. Long day, I asked. My voice smaller than I intended. You have no idea. He was already loosening his tie, his gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder. This new branding project is a beast. We're chasing a huge client. He walked past me into the kitchen, pulling a bottle of water from the fridge. He didn't even notice the candles or the steak. When I finally brought up the trip, his back was still to me. Sounds great. Babe, he said, his voice muffled. But I just don't know. Things are insane right now. Maybe we should just do something local. A few days passed. The vibrant energy in our apartment became heavy, muted, like a radio station fading into static. The space between us grew, filled with the things he wasn't saying. I saw the way he angled his phone away from me when a text came through, the way he'd started taking his work calls out on the balcony, closing the glass door behind him. One evening, while scrolling through Instagram, I saw her name for the first time. Liv? She was tagged in a photo with a mutual acquaintance. I clicked. Her profile was a perfect grid of luxury brunches, designer bags, and cryptic captions about knowing your worth. A professional baddie. I went to Judson's profile. He'd followed her recently, and he'd methodically liked every single one of her last 20 posts. A cold knot formed in the pit of my stomach. It's nothing. A voice in my head insisted. He's in branding. It's just networking. Don't be that crazy. Jealous wife. I tried to believe it. The following week, he sat me down on the couch. He took both my hands in his thumbs rubbing circles on my knuckles in a gesture that was meant to be comforting but felt rehearsed. His expression was a perfect mask of regret. Babe, I have some bad news. He started. His voice soft. That big project I'm on. The client, they want me to fly out for an on-site workshop. It's mandatory. I stared at him, my heart beginning to thump a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. When he wouldn't meet my eyes, he looked at our joined hands. Next week. Our anniversary week. The knot in my stomach tightened into a ball of ice. For the whole week. Looks like it. I am so sorry. Babe. He finally looked up, his eyes pleading. I know it's our anniversary. I feel absolutely terrible. You know I'd rather be with you. I'll make it up to you. I swear. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw his perfectly crafted lies back in his face. But I just nodded, pulling my hands from his grasp. He seemed so sincere, so apologetic. For a ditsing moment, I felt guilty for the suspicion that was clawing its way up my throat. For the next 2 days, I lived in a state of numb denial. I told myself it was just terrible. Rotten timing. With a heavy heart, I went online and began to dismantle my beautiful surprise. With each click, cancel reservation. Cancel flights. Request refund, a small piece of the pride and joy I'd felt withered and died. The night he was supposed to have flown to Cleveland, I couldn't sleep. The apartment was suffocatingly quiet. His side of the bed was cold. I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling. The silence pressing in on me. Around 2 a.m, I gave up. I reached for my phone. Its bluish glow. The only light in the dark room. I opened Instagram, mindlessly scrolling through the curated lives of strangers, desperate for a distraction. And that's when I saw it. It was on Liv's Instagram story. A short, silent video, 2 champagne flutes, filled with bubbling gold, clinking together. In the background, through the reflection on a glass sliding door, was the unmistakable turquoise shimmer of a pool at night, lit from within. And beyond that, the sprawling, glittering skyline of a city that was definitely not Cleveland. My breath caught in my throat. My blood went cold. I knew that balcony. I had stared at pictures of it for weeks, imagining Judson and me standing there. Me fingers, now trembling, fumbled to tap on her profile picture. Her newest post, uploaded just an hour ago. The photo loaded, and the world stopped. It was her and Judson. His arm was wrapped tightly, possessively around her waist. They were both laughing, heads thrown back in a moment of pure, careless joy. A joy I hadn't seen on his face in months. They were at the rooftop bar. My rooftop bar. The one from my itinerary. The one I had spent hours trying to get a reservation for. And the caption, next to a single red heart emoji, Miami Nights, with my one and only. My one and only. The words echoed in the silent room. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. clattering onto the hardwood floor. The screen didn't crack, but I felt like I had shattered into a million pieces. The room tilted, the shadows on the wall swimming before my eyes. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the air had been stolen from my lungs, replaced by crushed glass. I slid off the bed and onto the floor, my back hitting the frame as a silent, violent tremor took over my body. The cold of the wood seeped through my pajamas, but I couldn't feel it. All I could feel was the frantic, panicked drumming of my own heart in my ears. He didn't just cheat. He had taken my gift, a gift born of my sweat, my sacrifice, my love, and he had given it to her. He had stolen my dream and was living it with someone else. After what felt like an eternity, a buzz from the phone on the floor jolted me. The screen lit up the darkness. It was a text message. From Judson. For a single, insane second, a flicker of desperate hope ignited in the wreckage of my heart. An explanation. A confession. An apology. My hand shook as I reached for it. I swiped the notification open, and I read the message. Thinking of you. Babe. Cleveland is boring without you. The winking emoji seemed to mock me from the screen, and in that instant, something inside me shifted. The hot tears of grief and heartbreak instantly dried up. The shaking stopped. The crushing weight on my chest was replaced by something else. Something cold and hard and heavy. It was rage. A silent, absolute rage that burned away all the pain, leaving behind only a chilling ANS recording sign and zero. Crystal clear focus. The winking emoji burned on the screen. A tiny, digital smear of condescension. For a long moment, I didn't move. I remained on the cold hardwood floor, the phone still in my hand. The silence of the apartment a roaring in my ears. The man I had loved for 8 years. The man who was supposed to be in Cleveland missing me. Was sunning himself in Miami with another woman. Using my money. Sleeping in my reserved bed. And living my meticulously planned dream. And he had the audacity to send me a winking emoji. Something inside me. Something that had been weeping and shattering just moments before, went silent. The grief, the shock, the heartbreak, it all receded, like a tide pulling away from the shore, leaving behind something hard and smooth and dangerous. Me fingers, which had been trembling, were now perfectly steady. With a deliberate, precise tap, I took a screenshot of his text message. Then I took a screenshot of Liv's Instagram post. I opened my messaging app, selected his name, and attached the 2 images. I didn't add a question. I didn't add an exclamation point. I wrote a single, calm sentence. I hope you and Liv are enjoying my anniversary gift. I hit send. Then I placed the phone face down on the floor beside me and waited. It didn't take long. Less than a minute later, the phone began to vibrate violently against the wood. Affrantique. Buzzing sound. His name flashed on the screen. I watched it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. On the 4th ring, I picked it up and answered, holding the phone to my ear without saying a word. Rachel, babe, what was that? I just woke up. I'm so confused. His voice was thick with fake sleepiness. But underneath it, I could hear a sharp edge of panic. I remained silent. I let the quiet stretch, forcing him to fill it. Babe. Listen. It's not what it looks like. He stammered, the words tumbling out of him now. I know it looks bad. But you have to let me explain. The Cleveland trip got canceled at the last minute. Literally as I was at the airport. Liv. She was already going to Miami. She had this whole thing planned with her friends. And one of them bailed. She invited me to tag along. I didn't want to just come home and disappoint you that the work trip was a bust. I thought I'd just have a few days to network and then come home and surprise you. The picture, the caption, that was just her being silly for her followers. You know how she is. It's all for the brand. The lies were so smooth, so practiced. A month ago, I might have believed them. A week ago, I might have wanted to. But now, hearing them with the cold clarity of betrayal, they were laughable. I could practically hear him scrambling, constructing the flimsy narrative as he went. The Airbnb. Judson, I said, my voice so low and even it barely sounded like my own. It's the one I booked. The one I canceled. There was a pause. A beat of pure, incriminating silence. What, no way? He finally said, his voice a pitch higher. That's a crazy coincidence. A 1 in a million chance. I almost laughed. And the rooftop bar, I asked. Another 1 in a million chance. Babe, you're not listening to me. You're upset. And I get it. This looks bad. But you're twisting things. Just let me come home. And we can talk this through. Don't do anything crazy. Okay, just wait for me. I ended the call. I didn't say goodbye. He was home by the next evening. I knew the moment he walked in that he'd decided on his strategy, righteous indignation. He didn't enter with his tail between his legs. He strode in like a conquering hero who'd been wrongly accused. Dropping his suitcase, the one I'd bought him for his 30th birthday, by the door with a loud thud. The apartment was cold and silent. I had packed a small bag for him. It was sitting by the couch. His golf clubs. His PlayStation. His favorite whiskey glasses. A starter kit for his new life. He ignored the bag. We need to talk about your behavior, he began. And the sheer audacity of it almost knocked the wind out of me. My behavior. Yes. This melodrama. Sending me cryptic messages. Refusing to listen to reason. I told you what happened. It was a work thing. An optics thing. You're letting your emotions get in the way of my career. Rachel. He paced the living room, gesturing wildly. Liv has connections. This whole trip was a networking opportunity. You think big brands are built by sitting at home? No. They're built at rooftop bars in Miami. They're built by creating a perception of success. And you tried to sabotage that because you were in your feelings about an Airbnb. It's incredibly selfish. I just stared at him. My expression unreadable. I felt a strange sense of detachment. As if I were watching a scene from a movie. This person in front of me, twisting reality into a pretzel to fit his narrative, was a stranger. The Judson I loved. The man who had helped me paint my studio walls had never existed. He was a character I had invented. So you stole my vacation plan. Used my money to take your mistress on a trip. And I'm the selfish one. Mistress, don't be so dramatic. He scoffed. And I paid you back for the flight. Didn't I? Or I was going to... You're getting so hung up on the details. You're missing the big picture. I was doing this for us. The lie was so bald, so insulting, that I had no response. I simply pointed to the bag on the floor. Get your things and go. Oh. Here we go, he said, rolling his eyes. You're kicking me out now over a misunderstanding after everything I've done for you. What have you done for me? Judson, I asked, my voice still quiet. He faltered for a second. Genuinely stumped. I I supported you, I helped you with the studio, I've always been your biggest cheerleader. You brought a bucket of paint, I said. Once? Now get out. He sighed. A long, theatrical sound of a man burdened by an emotional woman. Fine. I'll go stay at my parents' place for a few days. Give you some time to cool off and come to your senses. But when you're ready to apologize for this tantrum, you know where to find me? He grabbed the bag, but left the golf clubs and the PlayStation. A clear statement that he believed this was temporary. At the door, he paused and looked back at me. You know, I always worried this would happen when your business took off, he said, his voice laced with a bitter, pitying tone. I knew the success would change you. Then he left. The door clicked shut, and the silence he left behind was a relief. I didn't cry. I sat on the couch for an hour, staring at the indentation he'd left in the cushion. Then I stood up, went into the bathroom, and scrubbed the scent of his betrayal off my skin. I drove to Chloe's apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. She opened the door and I just fell into her arms. The whole story came pouring out of me in a torrent of whispered rage. When I finished, she led me to her couch and handed me a glass of wine I didn't want. I'm going to kill him, she said, her voice a low growl. I'm not kidding. Rach, just say the word. I shook my head, a hollow laugh escaping my lips. It's the gaslighting. Chloe, he's trying to make me believe I'm the crazy one. No. She leaned forward, her eyes fierce. Listen to me. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. He didn't just cheat on you. Rachel, he stole from you. He stole your money, your time, your hard work, your beautiful, thoughtful gift. He took a piece of your success and he handed it to someone else. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a declaration of war. Her words cut through the fog of my confusion. She was right. He had declared war. He just didn't realize I was going to fight back. The silence in the apartment over the next few days was a living thing. At first, it was peaceful. Then it became heavy. Lonely. I threw myself into my work, taking on extra clients, staying late until my vision blurred and my hands ached. It was the only way to keep from thinking. Judson didn't call or text. He was waiting for my apology. The arrogance of it was breathtaking. On the third day, my phone buzzed with a notification as I was finishing my last appointment. I glanced at it, expecting it to be a client confirmation. My heart stopped. It was his name. For a single, stupid second, I thought it might be the apology, the moment of clarity, the groveling I deserved. My thumb hovered over the message. I took a deep breath and opened it. Hey. Weird question. The text began. My stomach dropped. But I've got this launch party for my new brand on Saturday, and my venue just fell through at the last minute. Total nightmare. Anyway, I was thinking, your studio is so cute and has that perfect aesthetic. Any chance I could use it, it would just be for a couple of hours. It'll be great exposure for you. I'll have all the influencer people tag you. I'll clean up after. I promise. Let me know. I read the message once. Then I read it again. I stared at the words until they swam together. The entitlement. The complete and utter lack of shame. The cluelessness. He had moved on from our anniversary trip and was now building a brand with the woman he took on it. And he wanted to launch it in the very space that represented my escape from a life of depending on men like him. He wanted to bring his new life into my sanctuary. A sound bubbled up from my chest. It wasn't a sob. It wasn't a scream. It was a laugh. A low, dark, unhinged sound that startled me. The love I had for him, the last lingering embers of it, didn't just die. They were extinguished by a tidal wave of ice. In that moment, he ceased to be the man who broke my heart and became simply a target. My fingers flew across the screen. Not to reply to him, but to call Chloe. She answered on the first ring. "Don't say anything," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Just listen. He wants to use my studio for his launch party." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "No." She finally whispered. "He did not." "He did," I said. A slow, predatory smile spreading across my face. "Chloe, he wants to use my studio. And I'm not just going to say no. I'm going to burn his little empire to the ground." That night, my apartment became a war room. Chloe came over with 2 bottles of expensive wine and a laptop. "Okay," she said, setting everything up on my coffee table. "Operation Trojan Horse is a go. What's the first step?" We spent the next 2 hours mapping it out. I pulled up my bank statements, highlighting the charges for the Airbnb and the flights. I found the original booking confirmations in my email, the ones with my name plastered all over them. I screenshotted the Google Doc, Project Anniversary Bliss, in all its color-coded glory. We compiled a digital folder, a treasure trove of his deceit. It was meticulous. It was undeniable. But it needed a finishing touch. It needed his own voice. "He's arrogant," I said, thinking aloud. "He thinks he's already won. He thinks I'm just a sad, hysterical girl who will eventually come crawling back." "So use that," Chloe said, her eyes gleaming. "Make him think he's still in control." A plan began to form, cold and clear in my mind. I downloaded a call recording app onto my phone. My heart hammered against my ribs. Not with fear, but with a chilling, exhilarating resolve. I found his name in my contacts and pressed the call button. He answered almost immediately, his voice smooth and confident. "Hey. I was hoping you'd call. So, what do you think about the party?" I took a deep breath and summoned every ounce of acting ability I possessed. I made my voice sound small, hesitant, a little broken. "Judson, I don't know. It's a lot. After everything that happened." I know," he said, his tone dripping with fake sympathy. "And I'm telling you, this could be a great first step for us to move past all that negativity. A clean slate." "I just feel so silly," I whispered, making sure to let my voice crack just a little. "Seeing those pictures. Did Liv like the rooftop bar I was so excited when I found it online?" I could almost hear him preen through the phone. "Oh yeah. She loved it. Great find. Babe, you've always had good taste." And the Airbnb, was it as nice as the pictures I pressed? My voice laced with faux naivety. "Even better," he said, falling right into the trap. "The pool was amazing. Liv got some incredible content there. It was a really productive trip. Honestly. So, if I let you use the studio," I said, my voice barely audible, "does Liv know that the whole Miami trip was basically my idea? It's kind of funny." "Right, in a weird way." He laughed. A condescending, dismissive little chuckle. "Babe, come on. She doesn't need to know all the messy details. What matters is that we all had a good time. Right, let's just focus on the future. So, about the studio. Is that a yes? I let the silence hang for a moment, savoring the victory. He had just admitted everything. On tape. A real smile, cold and sharp as a razor, touched my lips. I'll let you know. Judson, I said softly. I'll think about it. I hung up the phone. I looked across the coffee table at Chloe, whose eyes were wide with a mixture of horror and awe. I opened my phone and looked at the new file in my audio folder. Judson, confession. MP3. I had him, and he had absolutely no idea what was coming. I hung up the phone. The file Judson confession. MP3 sat on my screen, a monument to his own arrogance. I looked across the coffee table at Chloe, who was staring at me, her eyes wide. A slow smile spread across her face, mirroring my own. The air in the apartment, which had been thick with strategy and tension, suddenly felt light, electric with potential. The predator had walked willingly into the snare. The following day, a Friday, was the longest day of my life. Every client that sat in my chair, every swipe of the brush, every moment spent under the hum of the LED lamp was a practice in restraint. I moved through the motions of my life, but my mind was elsewhere. It was in a cold, calculated space, rehearsing the steps to come. That evening, I didn't go out. I stayed in, sitting at my kitchen table, the glow of my laptop illuminating my face in the dark. I opened a blank document and began to write. The words didn't come out in a torrent of anger. They flowed with a calm, chilling precision. I started at the beginning, our anniversary, the dream trip I had saved for, the meticulous planning. I wrote about his lies, about Cleveland, about the crushing discovery in the dead of night. I laid it all out, not as a scorned wife, but as a historian documenting a betrayal. The tone was factual, devoid of the screaming rage that was simmering just beneath the surface. I attached the evidence methodically, a screenshot of the Airbnb booking confirmation with my name and credit card information, a screenshot of the Google Doc itinerary, Project Anniversary Bliss, a screenshot of Liv's Instagram post, side by side with a picture of the rooftop bar from the travel website I'd used. I embedded the audio file of his confession, a neat little play button sitting there, waiting. I finished with a screenshot of his text message asking to use my studio. I read the entire post over and over again, until the words blurred and the story felt like it belonged to someone else. It was perfect. It was undeniable. It was a guillotine. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. I had asked her to do some digging, to use her vast network of acquaintances to find out where the party had been moved. His text had said his venue fell through, but I knew he'd find another. A man like Judson couldn't stand the thought of a cancelled party. Chloe's text was short and triumphant. Target acquired. The Gilded Lily. That new cocktail lounge in Old City. 8 p.m. He really thinks he's a big shot. Of course, the most pretentious, see and be seen, spot in the city. A place with velvet ropes and a guest list. A place built for Instagram. He wasn't just launching a brand. He was trying to anoint himself as Philadelphia's new creative royalty. The stage couldn't have been more perfect. By Saturday afternoon, affrontique. Nervous energy had taken hold of me. 1,000 tiny doubts began to gnaw at the edges of my resolve. What if this is too much? What if it backfires? Am I really this person? To silence the noise in my head, I drove to my studio, I needed to be in my own space. The one place on earth that was unequivocally mine. I didn't turn on the main lights. Just the soft glow of my station lamp. I sat in my client chair. The familiar scent of acrylic and disinfectant, a comforting balm. This was what he had tried to take from me. Not just the money. Not just the trip. He had tried to take my peace. He had tried to make my sanctuary the backdrop for his victory. As the clock ticked closer to 8, I took a deep breath. My hands felt cold, but they were steady. I opened my laptop and pulled up the draft. I attached the post and the entire folder of evidence to an email and sent it to Chloe and 2 other trusted friends. The subject line was simple: 8:30 p.m. Their replies came back within minutes. From Chloe, ready when you are. Let's burn it down. From another friend, Maya, got it. He has no idea what's coming. At 8 o'clock. Right on schedule. My phone screen began to light up. Liv's Instagram story was the first to appear. A boomerang of her and Judson clinking champagne glasses. She was wearing a glittering, backless dress. He was in a tailored suit. His hair perfectly coiffed. They looked like a power couple. They looked happy. Then came the flood of posts from other guests. All tagging, Judson Creative Launch. The Gilded Lily was packed. The lighting was low and flattering. Everyone was beautiful and smiling. A few minutes later, a video appeared on Liv's story. Judson was standing on a small stage, a microphone in his hand. A smug, triumphant smile on his face. I just want to thank you all for coming, he said. His voice smooth and confident. And a special thank you to my muse. My inspiration. The brilliant force of nature who has pushed me to be better every single day. Liv. This is for you. The crowd applauded. He blew her a kiss. My stomach turned. That was it. That was the final push I needed. The last flicker of doubt was extinguished. I looked at the clock on my phone. 8:29 p.m. I switched from Instagram to Facebook, where I had the post saved as a draft. My thumb hovered over the post button. For a heartbeat, the face of the man who had helped me paint these walls flashed in my mind. The man who had held me when I cried. Who had told me my success was his. That man was gone. Maybe he had never been there at all. In his place was a stranger in a tailored suit, toasting another woman with my stolen dreams. I pressed the button. The screen refreshed. The post was live. The world was quiet for a moment. Then, the first notification appeared. A like from Chloe. Then a share. Then a comment from Maya. The truth always comes out. Then another. And another. My phone began to vibrate. Allo. Steady hum against the cold glass of my station table. A trickle became a stream. Then a river. Then a flood. I let it build for 5 minutes. Then, I executed the second part of the plan. I opened my messages, found Liv's name, and pasted the link to my public post. I attached the audio file directly. I added one simple sentence. You deserve to know who you're building a brand with. I hit send. Then I turned my phone face down. I stood up and walked to the large front window of my studio, looking out at the quiet, empty street. I didn't want to see the chaos. I wanted to feel it. After what felt like an eternity, my phone started buzzing again. It was a text from Chloe. Oh my God, people are looking at their phones. The vibe just shifted. A minute later, another text. Someone just showed Judson. His face? Rach. His face just went white. I closed my eyes. picturing it. Picturing his smug smile melting away, replaced by the cold, dawning horror of being caught. Then, the final, explosive text from Chloe. Liv just threw a drink on him. In front of everyone. She screamed something I couldn't hear and she's storming out. It's over. The party is over. I opened my eyes. A slow, deep breath filled my lungs. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in weeks. The knot of anger and grief that had been lodged in my chest for so long had finally, blessedly, begun to dissolve. The story spread faster than I could have imagined. It was no longer contained within our circle of friends. Chloe texted me a link to a local Philly gossip blog. The headline was already up: local brand guru Judson Miller's launch party ends in disaster amidst cheating allegations. They had embedded my entire post. My story. My evidence. My voice. Was everywhere. He was ruined. In a single, calculated hour. I had dismantled the entire facade he had so carefully constructed. He wasn't a creative genius. He wasn't a power player. He was just a common thief in a tailored suit. And now, everyone knew it. I was still standing by the window when my phone, which had been buzzing nonstop with notifications and messages of support, suddenly stopped. The silence was jarring. Then, it began to ring. A single, piercing sound that cut through the quiet of my studio. I walked over and picked it up. His name was flashing on the screen. Judson. My thumb hovered over the red decline button. It would be so easy to just ignore him. To let him scream into the void. But that wasn't enough. He didn't deserve the mercy of silence. He deserved to know that I was on the other side. Listening to his downfall. I swiped green. I answered the call and held the phone to my ear. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, in the quiet darkness of my sanctuary, and I listened. I held the phone to my ear. My own breathing slow and measured. A stark contrast to the ragged, panicked gasps on the other end of the line. For a full 10 seconds, the only sound was his frantic fight for air and the distant, chaotic noise of a city streetcar horns blaring. A siren wailing. He wasn't in the party anymore. He was outside. Cast out into the night he had tried to conquer. Rachel, his voice was a choked, broken thing. Stripped of all its previous swagger, it was the voice of a boy. Not a man. Rachel. Please. You have to take it down. You have to tell them it's a lie. A joke. Anything. I remained silent. I let his words hang in the air, letting him feel the full weight of their futility. You've ruined me. He sobbed. And the sound was wet and pathetic. My life is over. The investors are calling. My partners. Liv. She looked at me like I was garbage. You did this, why would you do this? He was still blaming me. Even now. At the absolute nadir of his own making. The fault was somehow mine. He had handed me the knife, pointed to his own back, and was now crying foul that I had used it. This was all Liv's idea. You know, he rambled, his words tripping over each other in a desperate attempt to find purchase. She's the one who's so obsessed with image. With perception, I was just playing the game. For us. Rachel, I swear. I was always thinking about us. The lie was so thin, so transparent. It was almost pitiful. I pictured him standing on a street corner. His tailored suit now, a costume for a tragic clown. His perfect hair probably a mess from where Liv's champagne had hit him. He wasn't a villain anymore. He was just small. I decided he had suffered the humiliation of my silence long enough. It was time for the final cut. I took a soft, deliberate breath. And for the first time since answering, I spoke. My voice was not angry. It was not triumphant. It was calm, clear, and utterly indifferent. No. Judson, I said quietly into the phone. You ruined you. I just turned on the lights. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. I pressed the red icon on my screen, ending the call. Then, with a few calm taps, I opened his contact, scrolled to the bottom, and pressed block this caller. A confirmation box popped up. Are you sure? I smiled. I had never been more sure of anything in my life. I pressed block contact. And just like that, he was gone. A ghost. Finally exorcised from my machine. The next morning, I woke up to the sun streaming through my apartment window. For the first time in weeks, the light didn't feel intrusive. It felt clean. My phone was a minefield of notifications. But I ignored them. I made coffee, sat on my couch, and just breathed in the quiet of my own home. It felt different. It felt bigger, lighter. It felt like mine again. Later, a call came through from Chloe. Morning. Killer, she said, her voice buzzing with energy. Are you watching the fireworks? I've been trying not to. I admitted. Well, allow me to give you the highlight reel, she said. And I could hear the smile in her voice. Judson Creative's Instagram and Facebook pages gone. Vanished. The website is a 404 error. The gossip blog post has been shared over 10,000 times. 2 of the investors he paraded around last night have released public statements saying they have severed all ties. But here's the best part. You ready? I'm ready. Liv, Chloe said with theatrical flair. Posted a 2-minute-long, tearful video to her story this morning. She talked about being manipulated and deceived by a toxic narcissist. She said she's a champion for all women and would never knowingly be a part of someone's betrayal. She's positioning herself as a victim and a hero. She ended by saying she's taking a social media break to heal and process. Oh, I burst out laughing. A real, deep, belly laugh. It was so perfectly, predictably her. She was a cockroach, scurrying away from the nuclear blast to save her own skin. It was the most fitting end I could have imagined. They deserved each other, and now they had destroyed each other. And him, I asked, my laughter subsiding into a quiet smile. Radio silence. Chloe said, he's gone to ground, probably hiding at his parents' house. Just like you predicted. After we hung up, I felt a strange sense of finality. The war was over. I had won, but there was still wreckage to clear. I picked up my phone, my fingers moving with a new, decisive purpose. I went to his contact, which was now just a number in my blocked list. And I deleted it. Then I went to my photo gallery. I scrolled back. Past the hollow-eyed woman of the last few weeks, past the strained smiles of the last few months, all the way back through the years. I saw us, young and hopeful, standing in front of our first apartment. I saw him, holding me on a beach, his smile genuine and full of light. For a fleeting second, a pang of sadness hit me for the man I thought he was, for the life I thought we would have. Then I took a deep breath, pressed select, and began to tap. Each picture vanished in a tiny puff of digital smoke. The beach trip, the holidays, the birthdays, The quiet, ordinary moments in between. I kept going until the only photos left were of me, of Chloe, of my family, and of my nail art. I had curated my own history, editing out the fiction, my life, in my own image. That afternoon, I tackled the apartment. I gathered the last of his physical possessions, the golf clubs he used twice a year, the PlayStation he cared more about than me, his ridiculously expensive whiskey glasses. I didn't throw them. I didn't smash them. That would have required an anger I no longer felt. Instead, I boxed them up neatly, sealed them with packing tape, and carried them down to the curb next to the recycling bins. I went back upstairs, opened all the windows, and let the cool autumn air rush in, chasing out the last lingering ghosts of him. A few days later, an email popped into my inbox. It was an automated message I'd long forgotten about. The subject line read, "Your refund has been processed." It was from Airbnb. The full amount for the Miami trip, right down to the service fees, had been deposited back into my account. My money, the money he had stolen, seeing it there felt like a final, quiet victory. I stared at the confirmation email for a long time. I could put the money into savings. I could invest it back into my business. But that didn't feel right. That money was tainted. But it was also symbolic. It represented a dream that had been corrupted, and the only way to cleanse it was to reclaim the dream itself. I opened a new tab in my browser and went to a travel website. I didn't type Miami. I didn't look for infinity pools or rooftop bars. I scrolled through pictures of quiet coastlines, of misty mountains, and of cabins nestled in deep woods. I found a small, secluded cottage on the coast of Maine, with a stone fireplace and a porch that looked out over the raw, churning Atlantic. The pictures were not glamorous. They were peaceful. I booked it for the following week. No itinerary. No schedule. Just me, the ocean, and the quiet. Standing on that rocky shore a week later, with the salty wind whipping my hair across my face and the thunderous sound of the waves crashing against the rocks, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was real. The cold spray on my skin, the scent of pine and brine, the immense, untamable power of the ocean. It was so much more real than the curated perfection of Miami. I was alone, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't lonely. I thought about Judson, not with anger, but with a distant, clinical pity. He had been chasing a reflection, a cheap, glittering imitation of happiness he saw on a screen. He would spend the rest of his life chasing those fleeting, hollow moments, never understanding that the real thing couldn't be tagged or filtered. It had to be felt. And in that moment, looking out at the endless gray horizon, I realized something. I had spent so long building my business, thinking that my success, my studio, my savings account, that these were the things that made me strong. But I was wrong. I learned that your greatest asset isn't your business or your bank account. It's your self-respect. And it's the one thing you should never, ever allow anyone to steal. A few months passed. The winter chill gave way to the tentative warmth of a Philadelphia spring. The story of Judson's downfall became old news, a piece of local gossip that had faded with the changing seasons. I never heard from him again. My studio, however, was thriving. The story, in a strange twist of fate, had brought in a wave of new clients, women who came in and told me their own stories of being underestimated, of being wronged. My little studio became more than just a place to get your nails done. It became a community, A sanctuary. One bright Tuesday afternoon, the bell above my door chimed. A new client, a young woman with a nervous but excited smile, walked in for her first appointment. "Hi, I'm Sarah," she said. "I'm so excited to be here. Your work is incredible." I smiled. A real, genuine smile that reached my eyes. I gestured to the empty chair. "Hi, Sarah. I'm Rachel. Welcome. I'm so glad you came. Now, let's make something beautiful."